This is the Board of Education meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act was provided by written notice on May 6, 2020 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Star Ledger, Tappan to Warren, and the clerks of the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Greenbrook, Long Hill, and Warren. Roll call, please, Mr. Stice.
Dr. Chan? I see. Naresh?
Yes.
Yeah, he's here. Okay, that's what, Mr. Fallon?
Here.
Excuse me, Mr. Hayek?
Here.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Here.
Mr. Morrison? Mrs. Ober?
Here.
Okay, Ms. Potter?
Here.
Dr. Shabilsky? Ms. Raban?
Here.
And Ms. Burrow.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance as soon as we get the flag up.
Hold on one moment.
Yep.
Okay.
There's one over my head.
Right. There's a cloud in front of it.
Oh, oops.
There we go. That's what I want.
There.
Okay.
All right. I pledge allegiance
To the
flag
of the United
States
States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
and
for all.
justice for all. It's hard with the delay, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Very hard.
All right.
Okay.
So the first part of our agenda is the strategic plan, phase 1 engagement report discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to our guests.
And Rita, do we just for the public, of course, we invite everyone to stay, but just so everyone knows, that will go from 6 to 7, then 7 to 7:30 we'll go into closed session. And then at approximately 7:30, we'll come back out and do the rest of our regular meeting, just so that everyone who's in the public is aware of that.
Okay. So.
Hey, you want us to start?
Yes, please.
Well, we, Dr. Max and I, Dr. Max McGee Papa and I were here with you virtually on May 5th, and we delivered a fairly extensive report of the findings from the engagement phase, which is the first phase of strategic planning. And yeah, it was long and it was detailed, and it did not, that evening did not provide sufficient time really to hear feedback from the board, to answer any questions from the board, or to proceed with a couple of decision-making areas where we'd like to take you tonight if we can, before we go into the next phase, which we can describe to you again later. What's important to understand about the engagement phase is that the report is extensive, and it's somewhat hard to digest if you're reading it for the first time. We tried to do some digestion for you through the slide presentation that we made, and we have some additional work tonight that we want to share with you that we think will help you with that. That phase is very important because it provides the data and the information that is then used not only by the board but by the design team to come back to you with suggestions about a mission, a vision, new initiatives, continued initiatives, activities, measures, a whole bunch of things that flow from this engagement phase. It is the one time where there's an opportunity for anybody and everybody in your constituency to tell you what they think about what you're doing well and what they think needs to be improved. And that's why it's so vitally important that we spend a lot of time on that and we gather as much information as we can. And again, that was done through a survey and through focus groups, through personal interviews and through open forums. And you got good participation in all of those areas. So that's kind of where we are in the process. And we did have some individual questions by board members that were submitted. And you may have other questions tonight that you want to ask. We can spend time on that. But then I want to make sure that we have sufficient time to really explore with you where we are with goals, which goals you want to keep, which goals you might want to make modest changes to, or if there are new goals. And we do have a suggestion on that, that you should consider based on the additional input that we got. So that's kind of the agenda for the evening. So I just wanted to tell you that in advance so that we allow sufficient time to go into the major discussion about goals. And then of course, timing for where we go, when we go forward and how we go forward with our plan in the midst of COVID-19. So that's kind of the introduction to that, Liz. So we can, do you want to start with questions, Rita, or is that where you'd like to begin this conversation?
So I think that if we start with some questions, what board members might have some questions about the detail, but getting to the point where what that detail means, I think might help facilitate the discussion a little bit more. So I don't know if people have questions more about like how we got to certain data or results from certain data that from the last report, versus like, what does this all mean? Where do we go from here? Susan?
Well, I did have some questions and I submitted them to Dr. Jewett. And I guess I'm fine with either starting with our questions, or I was under the impression you were going to see those ahead of time, Judy, and maybe address them in your comments tonight anyway. So however they get addressed. I think it's helpful to have I questioned how we got to from all of that data to what the different sort of summaries were, but that was just one of my questions.
And I have them here and I can go through them quickly. I think the main idea though that I wanted to share with you regarding your questions is that what we tried to do, the data was given to you as raw data, but then it was also analyzed, synthesized, and triangulated to provide you with what we think are the major findings and the major areas where you should pursue in your next plan. So that applies to your question 3, which is how did you arrive at what we do in our 2020 plan? Is it different from aspirations or guiding principles or the big ideas? And the answer to that is no. They're all really triangulated into the conclusions that we presented to you about where you should go next. We asked different questions and some people answered questions about aspirations, but from that we can pull a lot of interesting, that you also see what priorities are when you look at aspirations. So there's a lot of overlap in the question areas. So I'm not sure that really clarifies for you, Susan, what your question was, except that I could go through each one and show you which areas we tapped for those conclusions. But I think the main thing is for you to, having read them and looked at them, is to say, oh yeah, I see that in the data, or I don't see where she got that from, or that kind of a thing. I'd like to have the more general reaction to, yeah, this data, I can see where she or he or both of us came to the conclusions that we came to in the presentation that we made.
So if I might add, and Susan, thanks for your question in advance, and you too, Jordana, kind of the big picture for me that emerged, were major themes. One, of course, social emotional wellness. Progress on the goal last time, let's continue it. There's still more work to be done. A second piece was the DEI, the Diversity and Equity Initiative. That came up again in surveys and focus groups and forums. And again, whether that stands alone as a goal or falls under something else, we certainly do not want to lose sight of that. A third big theme that arose was the student in the middle. And you know, I guess that would fall under academic achievement or success for all. And we heard a lot about the great progress you made with the innovation initiatives and more course offerings and the great success in AP. But it continues to, I mean, even the test data that we examined showed that the mathematics achievement really does lag significantly, frankly, behind the reading and writing achievement. And you know, whether that's due to kids in the middle or at lower end, I can't say. But that student in the middle and assuring that you know they graduate prepared for career, college, and life, or life, I guess, was important. You know, I think the fourth theme was the idea of the culture and climate. Creating a more cohesive culture behind a shared vision and mission, building more trust among various stakeholders. And the final piece was that global awareness. What are we doing for global citizens? So just if someone were to ask me, hey, give me the elevator speech, and that I realized just took us to the 60th floor versus the 6th. But in 30 seconds, I would say that those 5 areas were the big themes that emerged from that extraordinary 47-page report.
It might be, I don't want to rush it, but if you'd like to look at a couple of documents that we pulled together today to try to focus the discussion around goals and topics, would that be helpful to move into that next, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Do you want, which one do you want first, Judy? That one or this one?
I think we should maybe start with the goals. I think
Okay.
because Max just gave the big topics, and they do actually. One of the findings was, and you should be very proud of this. There's a lot of support for the goals that you had in your first plan, and for the direction you were planning to take the district long term. We feel very strongly that the first 3 goals are fine just the way they are, and they certainly cover all the areas that Max talked about. We're thinking about doing a little restructuring. There is one new area, and that is something around the culture for learning, culture, climate, whatever you want to call it. I think the main point here is, in order to pull everybody together and get everybody marching to the same drum and feeling positive about it, there is work to be done on the general culture of the school, and it covers a lot of areas. I put together a statement that kind of covers it, just to help you understand what we're talking about here. That goal would look something like: build and sustain a school district culture that instills commitment, collaboration, and responsibility. We heard a lot of feedback from teachers in particular and their supervisors about some of the bumps and starts that you had in getting everybody thinking in new ways and working together on things. So that's why we're looking at that as something that's really important. Your survey identified as the highest priority, I believe, the trust and communication and trust area. That needs to be humming in order to get all of the other very important goals that you have implemented. So that's why we're suggesting that you add that 4th goal. And then, as Max was talking about, we had a discussion today with Rita and Jordana in preparation for tonight, and Liz as well, on the child in the middle, and what that child, who is that child, and what are the issues around that. If we there seems to be from it's more the abbreviation than it is the goal itself. Goal 2 is great. It talks about, if you look at it in its specificity, it talks about engaging students in developing their individual potential, experiencing success in high school, and empowering them to plan and prepare for post-secondary learning. So when you abbreviate that and talk about post-secondary learning, you're leaving out 2 very critical elements of that goal. Not that you've left it out with the activities, but the emphasis in terms of its shortcut, its short version, its slogan, whatever you want to call it. So if you rename that Success for All, that means academic success for all students in high school, realizing potential. It means success in getting them ready for their next phase, whether that's a career or secondary, post-secondary college education. So that's why we came to the conclusion of success for all versus post-secondary planning as the short version of that goal, not changing the goal, just highlighting a different aspect of it for purposes of planning in the future. And there you could put, we'll talk about what things go in there in a second.
I was just going to, Peter, I see Peter has his hand raised. I wasn't sure if Judy, if you wanted to take questions kind of in the midst of this, or if you wanted to wait till you were all done.
Just finish the one piece, which is
Got it.
And then we'll go back and look at this. The goal 3, again, the short version of it focuses on how you're going to do it versus what it is you're trying to achieve. So we're suggesting that you retitle your short version something like global citizenship, because when you look at the wording of your goal, it's integrate creative, innovative, and interdisciplinary learning throughout the district in order to empower and inspire students to succeed in a changing global community. So if you change the focus from how you're going to do it to what outcome you're looking for, I think it focuses it more on what your real goal is. So that, go ahead, Peter, not Peter, was it Peter?
Yes, it was Peter.
Yeah.
Judy, why don't you go ahead and finish the rest of this page, and then I'll ask my questions.
Well, we talked about that culture for learning. That would be new. And then just really minor tweaking to, not to your goals themselves, but to your short version, how you identify them in your literature and in your planning. Just to help categorize the activities a little better, and also explain to your public what it is you're trying to achieve. So the one thing that's new and deserves your discussion entirely, I think, tonight is this issue of culture for learning. Is that a goal that you saw in the feedback and that you feel is an important one? Is that something you'd like to include as you go through your planning for 2025?
Well, if I could, and I apologize for not getting questions in beforehand, but you know, going right to that point, I actually had raised my hand before we got into these goals, because one of the questions that I had in looking over, you know, what we had done last time from your survey report, you know, one of the things that was rated as, you know, for the future, foster a positive professional climate of mutual trust among faculty, students, and administration. Was rated high by some people, not high by others. But, you know, what I'm trying to understand is this your version of what that looks like? And more than that, from the fact that it was in the survey report where it was, what is it that you think we as board members should take from that?
Well, you're absolutely right. When you look at the detail responses by individual constituent groups, it's an extremely high response of your certificated staff, 81% put that in their top categories. for future priorities. And that also came through in the focus groups and the survey, the written survey that teachers responded to, because they did not have the opportunity to have a in-person meeting with us. So if you don't have teachers feeling that this is a productive culture in which to do their work, then your planning is going to be useless. You have to have the teachers working with you and behind you, alongside of you, to make all of this happen. And I think there's a feeling among some, and it's certainly not all, but there's a feeling among some and a significant enough number that work needs to be done there. And it's begun, the work has begun. It's begun with collaboration with professional learning communities. But you only had a couple of years to really work on that. So I think it deserves a little bit more attention in this next round.
Well, then let me ask you, because help me understand a little bit more what 4 means, what goal 4 means. What would you see us doing to fulfill that goal?
I think it's a communication is one aspect of that, and that came through as an area of need as well. You never can communicate enough, but there's a sense that people don't know what they need to know as fast as they need to know it. They're not included on everything. There's a little bit of a sense that, well, administration tells us what they want to tell us, or the board tells us what they want to tell us, but they don't tell us the whole truth. And all of this could just be perception, but if it's what people feel, it's important to change that. So communication is one, involving people extensively in decision making is another. Building systems where people work together and they learn to trust and respect and like each other, even have opportunities to agree and disagree with one another. And all that is very time consuming, but it's people work, and people work is important in school districts.
How do we as board members know? Because we have, staff members who say, we're not consulted on anything. It comes from the top down, and we have administration tell us, we collaborate, we ask them for input, and then we make decisions. In the end, I think the board wants the administration making decisions, but it's hard for us as board members to draw the line, which is why I'm struggling with this as a goal for us to set.
Well, the struggle, Peter, is going to be in finding ways to do it, and that's in the design phase of your planning. Figuring out strategies that will improve that relationship, and establish it. If you end up doing that survey that University of Penn suggested to you, and you could customize and tailor it so that you get some good baseline data, you can either confirm or modify the importance of this particular goal. But I think that's important to do. Unfortunately, doing a survey after COVID-19 is maybe the worst time to do it, because people's attitudes will change significantly, better or worse. I'm not sure. It may, in fact, turn out to be better than it was when we talked to people. But that's where I would go next with that, is getting a valid, reliable survey that really tests this, and having a extensive, if not 100%, certainly close to 100% response rate from faculty to that, if that's the area where you're worried about. Now, this is the culture for learning is also has to do with other things like student attitudes about school. They feel that the ones we talked to felt like there was not enough school spirit, there was not sufficient opportunity for students to go to games. There are a lot of things that they complained about.
Judy, I'm thinking that actually in here, these are things we're just.
I would think that's great, Liz. Let's talk. Maybe this will answer some of those questions when we Max and I tried to take the areas. These are not goals or they're not objectives, but they are topics that came up over and over again, and we kind of classified them by these 4 categories. If you had a goal that dealt with culture for learning, it would potentially have diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that covers the whole issue of some of the areas that are sensitive within your student body. We heard some reaction to socioeconomic status differences and even that transition to the high school where students from certain districts or certain places didn't feel as accepted as others. So there are things you can do there with articulation, transition, and support, and certainly the whole effort that you've started with the diversity committees, and it's a consortium. That's a very highly regarded consortium, as I understand it, that's doing great work in this area. That would improve your results in acceptance of people who are different for whatever reason. School spirit and pride, this came directly from the students. It was supported by teachers as well, but there's an area that needs to be worked on. You have a big district, a big size school, and it's hard to do that, but there may be ways that you can approach it through changing structures and changing schedules or whatever that allows students to work on supporting school as a not just teams. We're not talking just about teams, but having great pride in the school. Communication and trust, that came right out of the survey. Collaboration, and even social. I put social responsibility on this. So that came out loud and clear in the portrait of a graduate. That was an area where people felt students needed to have more opportunities for personal responsibility, respect for others. There's a whole host of characteristics and traits that are in the report that fall into that. And the whole idea of focusing on the importance of learning versus grades and GPA is another area that is cultural in its nature. This isn't the whole list. These are the things that popped up at us as we looked at categorizing them. Global awareness is under the creative and interdisciplinary learning. If we change that to something called global, that actually would become the header. But there's a lot of work that's already taken place here. It's good work. It's not done, but we certainly need to continue that. And if you change the post-secondary planning, as we're suggesting, to success for all, then you can look, that again would change, that would go up into the header. Post-secondary planning needs to continue with all the supports that you've put in place and more to help kids who are going to college know how to prepare for that and be successful in accessing colleges that they want to access or their parents want them to access. But it also involves this child in the middle and the career pathways and the opportunities that child may be seeking after high school. So that would go into that area. I've talked a lot. I'm sorry, I got carried away. I probably over-answered your question, Peter, or under-answered it, I'm not sure.
Well, I don't want to monopolize, so I'm going to hold off for a few moments if people have other questions, but I do have more.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? Any other board members? Jordana?
Yeah, I just, I guess kind of questions with reflection. If we can go back, you don't mind flipping back and forth as I refer to the slides. I guess as I'm kind of, this is very helpful, by the way. So thank you so much, guys, for putting it together because it helps me connect the dots a little bit better. respond, I think, hopefully a little bit more intelligently with my thoughts. I guess as I look at these 4 goals, the first 2 I think make sense to me, right? The first one is kind of easy. Social emotional wellness, big area. We've made some strides. Keep going. Got it. The second goal, as I understand your recommendation, perhaps given the way we worded it, unintentionally focused on post-secondary learning, perhaps for the more college-bound. Again, that was not necessarily intentional, but words kind of guide us. And so we really want to make sure that we really more reword it so it's super clear that this is success for all, whether a student chooses to be college-bound or not. We want to support them and make sure that they are the best they can be either way. That's kind of my takeaway. Is that basically, essentially, are we in agreement that that's kind of the suggestion?
Yeah.
What will be coming out with words? Good.
Jordana,
Yes,
I
sir.
think words do mean things, and I think it was not inadvertent that post-secondary planning was included with the second goal, because a major part of that was trying to make sure that we would be spending money on improving our guidance department, so that kids could get to whatever places they wanted to be, whether it was college, whether it was competitive college, or whether it was working. So it was intentional, and words do matter.
Yeah, no, they totally do. But my takeaway from this suggestion that this is more of a tweak, that we're going to make sure that as we develop the wording for this goal, right? Success for all is the shorthand, that it's going to be super clear that it is really, making sure that we take care of the college-bound, the not college-bound, whatever their choices are. We're going to guide them, and the guidance department will guide them so there's success for all. So it's more semantics, is my understanding, the recommendation for this goal. Is that everybody's understanding? And maybe I should pause and say, are we all in agreement with this direction?
I think that's correct in terms of the way I also heard the data being explained, in terms of what was coming out was not, what was coming out was, we're not getting enough support from the guidance department because we want to be there. It was, you're not focusing, the guidance department or whoever, whatever the supports are for the next level for our students, we're not focusing enough on those who may not want to go to college, who are left in the middle.
Yeah. And it's a choice,
even,
right?
or, people, that whole idea, like, people in the bottom get the support and the top get the support, right? So that whole thing, I think that success for all is a good shorthand of what the data was telling us anyway.
Yeah.
It's very hard. I'm finding it hard. Normally when we talk, I can see everybody.
I just opened up my screen because I know I'm still trying to share the other screen. So I can see.
To try to understand a consensus, right? So that's the only thing here.
So Naresh does have his hand raised.
Okay, Jordana, were you done with your question?
Well, maybe if you, so I had some thoughts about each, but maybe given the complexity of going, do you guys think perhaps going through each one of them separately, because I have some thoughts about the other 2. I'm happy to just throw those thoughts out, and then we can open up the floor for others. Rita, Dr. Ju, whatever you guys think is the best way to facilitate this complicated way to discuss this.
Yeah. Naresh, are you talking about goal 1 or 2 in your question?
Yeah, I'm talking about goal 2 and 3.
Okay. All right. So Jordana, why don't you finish, and then we'll go to Naresh next.
Sounds good. All right. So this is goal 2. Very good. 3 and 4, just as a high level, I guess I struggle with a little bit. So I hear you in terms of 3, your recommendation. You said that you were thinking like there's a lot in that, in the written, the full goal. There are a lot of terms. And I think, Judy, you said, I'm really thinking about what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And what you guys are recommending is global citizenship be really the focus. I guess as I read through, all your wonderful material, and as I'm kind of thinking through what the outcome is that's maybe bubbling up for me, again, that's, for me, it's, I think maybe more semantics, but I feel like, what are we trying to achieve high level? Isn't it more empowering and inspiring student success, right? That high level. Under that, as you showed in that other chart, right? Like STEAM and critical skills and global, and those are all the elements that will help us make sure that we have students who are empowered and inspired to succeed. So for me, again, semantics, words, super, super important. I'm just throwing out there and challenging whether it's the global that should be there or the inspiration and empowerment. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Throwing kind of that at you guys. And then the last one, I think, Peter asked a ton of really good questions on that one. I also think that culture for learning, to me, is a little bit generic, and I don't know what to do with that either. Like, on the one hand, I feel, duh, we better have a culture for learning. This is a school. So I'm kind of like, how can we make it a stronger goal that's not kind of genericized? Max, I think you mentioned, actually, when you were listing, I listed 5 goals.
Right.
One of them that's not on here was the diversity and equity.
Yep.
And so is that really the culture, like a culture of diversity and equity? Is that really? So again, to me, I feel like for me to be on board and say I'm with you guys, I feel the devil is in the details here of how we are articulating the breadth of this goal. Then I think the details underneath will be super easy. Right now, I'm personally struggling. So that's kind of my thoughts.
One thing I'll just add to that in terms of the conversation around that 4th goal is the DEI, as everyone knows, has been a big focus for the past 2 years, and especially over this past year. That was folded into goal 1 in the last plan. That was a performance indicator under the SEL goal. And so I think that it's become enough of a priority, and it's, gotten enough, gained enough importance that it should probably be its own goal. So that, I think, is the thought of putting it separately. And one of the things, if you notice the goals, it's kind of 1 and 4 are EQ and 2 and 3 are IQ. In terms of, emotional quotient. Which is kind of a nice balance to the goals. But that being said, in terms of taking 4 and tweaking it so that it's more specific toward, I think that that's a good suggestion. But just to give you an understanding. Yep, go ahead, Jordana. But I think so that people understand what it is.
Yeah, I'm supporting the spirit. I think this is a really, really important area, right? A culture of a school, a culture of any organization is critical, right? Because it guides the what and the how. So I just think we need to, articulate a little bit. So, the DI component, like you're right, the school spirit was coming up everywhere. I think that's, critically important. So again, to me, my only, challenge to you guys and feedback as before I can hop on board, I would love to really see the articulation, because it is such an important area that I think, anyway, I'm repeating myself, and my kids hate when I do that, so I'll shut up now.
All right, let's go to Naresh. Naresh, what were your questions?
I have just a few clarification. What do you mean by global community and global citizenship? post-secondary learning, how do you define them? And for all these goals, what is the measurement metric? How do you measure whether we are meeting these goals or not meeting? How are we going to measure it? The success.
So if I might add, I want to answer that question and also address Jordana's question about the culture for learning, because I think you're absolutely right. We need to be, and this gets back to Peter's point as well, very, very clear on that. And at least my reading of the report and the data and in the comments was really a specific culture of trust, engagement, and connectedness. And engagement means engaging student and staff voice, connecting, feeling a sense, and that goes with the whole school spirit. That is connectedness and belonging, and the trust, a trusting presence. And back to Peter, I have all kinds of ideas, but those are not big goal ideas. So I think we could be more. I think you're right, Jordana. Be more specific about that. And Naresh, how do you measure that? I think there are several different surveys on questions on that, whether it's the one you've used before with I think it was a Pennsylvania group. We used to ask all kinds of questions about belonging, connectedness. Would you recommend a staff member? Would you recommend to somebody that they would work here? There's all kinds of different ways, and there's all kinds of ways to look at the lack of complaints or decrease in complaints. There's ways to look at, and it connects to student and staff wellness. So I think you're on target. There needs to be measures for them. And that's just one example. As far as DEI, whether that's a separate one or whether it falls, it needs to be emphasized. I think it would be a significant mistake not to find a place to emphasize that, because it was mentioned so many times by really every stakeholder group.
My question was that, like, use goal number 2, post-secondary learning, right? Are we going to measure it that we would like to see that 20% more students that go to college? I mean, I'm just giving number, I mean, there must be some metric to measure, whether we are on the right track or not. So we must be sending, say, X percentage of students to college. Are we going to say we're going to send 10% more, 20% more?
Right.
I mean, there has to be some definition there, right?
Liz, maybe you could respond. Like the next step, I think, is more that.
Naresh, what you're saying is right on. Is we need a way to assess if we're actually achieving these goals. But so that's part of the next steps in the process.
I see. Okay.
Yes, but you are 100% right that we need to be able to gauge our progress on these. And some of the measures will be quantitative, some will be qualitative, and all of that will come back to the board, to approve those pieces as well, to make sure that we're using the right metrics. But yes, that's absolutely a part of it.
But how do you define the global citizenship? I'm not clear.
What we'd have to do, we have to do more work on that goal in terms of, it could be everything from the types of courses and experiences we're offering to students, to a survey of graduates in terms of their experiences at college and, how prepared they felt, different kind. That's obviously one that's a little bit harder, but it's also, looking at almost a curriculum audit as well to see if we're infusing those things into instruction and curriculum in our courses. So there's a
when
lot
you say global, does it mean that you will be comparing what Japan is doing, what the United Kingdom is doing, what Canada is doing? Global means to me that we're going to make some comparison what other countries or other communities or other colleges in the United States they are doing, right? Are we going to?
No, it might just be increasing our students' understanding of what is going on outside of the U.S.
I see.
A greater understanding of what's going on in the world. Cultural exchange programs, perhaps?
I don't know. It says integrate creative, innovative, interdisciplinary learning throughout the district to empower and inspire students to succeed in a changing global community, right? Succeed in changing global community. The global community today, everything is changing. We are in the, at the beginning of the 4th industrial revolution. We need manpower. We need to train manpower.
Well, we
And
need to talk about these and further
Yeah,
define
I
them.
think it sounds like it definitely sounds like to me that that is the third goal is still up in the air. I think that the abbreviated version is a suggestion by Max and Judy, but the question is whether or not that is really what we want, where we want to go. Let me just see if I can get Barry. I think Barry had his hand up, you said?
And Peter, yes.
Yeah. So I'm looking at number 4, and it seems to me that those are all things needed for a culture for success. But we have number 2 as success for all. So I don't know if we need to redefine 2 or if we can have 2 things with talking about success. But I think that, you know, the commitment, collaboration, and responsibility, they're all tools for success. So you create that culture, you're creating a culture for success.
Okay.
Maybe number 2 could be, I don't know, something
Right.
else.
Right.
So my understanding to that point is that we are rewording number 4 and this whole, like, we need to kind of align around what that full wording is, but it's something I actually really like, Max, the way you articulated it, even a culture of trust, engagement, and connectedness.
Yeah.
Because you're right, Barry, success lives in number 2. This is, you know, morphing into something that includes DEI, that includes school spirit, that it's a school culture that that needs to really be recrafted and rethought.
Peter?
I guess a couple of things. One, in terms of number 4, well, you know, one of the things Jordana said before struck me as about, you know, being about with goal number 3 being to empower and inspire students. To me, that has elements of what we want our culture to be. But for me, the biggest reason that I've been struggling with this culture one, and I'll return to what Jordana just said in a moment, is, you know, for the last several years, several board members have been saying, hey, you know, let's have a culture survey. You know, what we've been getting from the association is not as rigorous in some views as a culture survey. And as I said before, you know, we want our administration to collaborate with the teachers, but we want our administration to make decisions. So I'd be more interested in doing that Penn survey and finding out if we really do have a problem, or if we just have a lot of the certificated staff telling us they want things better than they are now, before I'm willing to say we need to change the culture and do more than we're doing to foster a positive and professional climate. One of the things, though, that Jordana just said about having a culture, citing what Max said about having a culture of trust and engagement, I think it's necessary. I think certainly we have some perceptions that it's not there. I'm not sure, though, until we have that Penn survey that we really know whether it's there or not.
And isn't, like, for right now, we're talking both culture in terms of the students' culture and their feelings about trust, engagement, and connectedness. And then we're also talking about the staff and their feelings about trust, engagement, and connectedness. And that really is 2 different things in my brain.
Yes.
So we're kind of melding it all into one goal and trying to make it really broad. And I just wonder if they can be the other ones are all student-centered, right? All the other 3.
Well,
this one is getting both things in there. And to Judy's point, it's important that our staff is with us. Otherwise, we can't do anything, right?
Right. Yes, I agree.
But I do hear you, Peter, that, like, this, and she did also say that we would need some sort of valid survey to really tease it out.
One of the things, oh, go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to say, with regard to the DEI, you know, I would disagree with you, Liz. I would leave that in the first goal and just, make it more of an emphasis, but I would still leave it in the first goal. It goes to, what we're doing for our students.
No, and Peter, one of the things with regard to DEI in the survey, and so this is, but the piece that's difficult about that is more work needs to be done in order to determine what our areas of focus need to be for that. So one of the things that we had talked a little bit about in the strategic plan committee, the survey, it was through our UPenn consortium, but it's through the Center for School Climate and Learning. And Dr. Preble, who heads that,
Right.
and who would be overseeing it, he suggested basically integrating the survey as part of our, really as part of our action items within the strategic plan that we can then each year, develop kind of the objectives from, because it entails students and staff choosing the most appropriate survey questions from the master survey based on the things that we're most concerned about. So that's all. So the goal, you're right, when we can't necessarily say, the areas we're trying to target in the goal, other than we want to identify what we need to do to improve the culture and climate, and then work toward that.
And I understand that you made that reference at our meeting 2 weeks ago. And while I understand it, I also struggle with this, as this is going to be the blueprint for what we as a board devote resources and money to for the next 5 years. And so, I want us to have a situation where if we find out that we're better than we're being told we are, that it's not going to become a focus of spending our resources there.
What I could tell you is that I'm confident from the feedback, not just from these surveys, but from the students, from the Student Diversity Council, from the parent feedback, that there are areas we need to address in there. There absolutely are, in terms of, improving our culture for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just can't confidently say these are the specific areas we need to target, but I can confidently say, and the other administrators and staff members who have, met with the students and gotten this feedback, that is definitely something the students want as a priority.
Okay. The final point I wanted to make, because I know we have more to do here, is I just wanted to tell the other board members that Bob Morrison, who can't be with us tonight, sent an email to Liz and to Rita and to Jordana just about the strategic planning process and trying to go through it in this period of COVID-19. And he actually said he's writing to request that we suspend further work on the strategic plan. He was concerned with the speed of the process originally. Current conditions have only amplified this concern. He goes on to make other points, but I think we've also shown tonight there's still a lot of questions about this. I don't know if now is the time to be drawing the consensus of the board.
Yeah, no, Peter, I mean, I agree with you. I think that tonight in my mind was to get the questions out to Judy and
Thanks,
Matt.
Rita.
We all seem to have a lot of questions, and I think we have to have another discussion on this. And it may be that we have to have another discussion in a couple weeks after we get through a couple other things that we have to deal with COVID-19.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm like suspending it is the best idea, but I don't have a problem slowing it down a little bit.
I think that makes sense, Rita.
And so I think that tonight, do we have any more questions where we're trying to pull information from X or Judy or, and we only have a couple more minutes before we have to go into exec.
I have a short question.
Sure.
My question is relating to goal number 2. In the survey, did we contact the universities also? Some feedback from them. If something is missing in our high school students when they go to college, which we must pay attention to.
Did you get information from university?
We do, Naresh, we do that on an ongoing basis. And as part of this goal, we actually started it, and then the county, all the schools in the county joined in, where we actually did a survey, sent a survey to directors of admissions at colleges. But this is something that we do, on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Thank you.
If we're looking for last questions, first I want to thank Max and Judy for being so agile and facile as we didn't get many of these questions to you beforehand, and I again apologize for that. But Judy, I want to go back to the PowerPoint presentation last time. One of the things we had on there was modify systems to improve equity and access. And as I was looking that over earlier today, maybe it's just me, but I didn't understand what that meant.
There was, students had a lot of concerns about being able to get into the electives that they wanted to take.
Okay.
You have them on the books, but because
Okay, now I understand what you meant by modify access. I didn't make that connection.
And the other was the levels, whether or not the levels allow students to access the courses that are best for them, or that they feel they want to take, or that will get them where they want to go in life. So that's really, and parents had that to say as well. There was a lot of concern about the levels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, I don't have any problem putting this on the agenda like every single time. We can have an hour discussion and see if we can move it forward.
It may not be best to have it on the next meeting's agenda, as we've got a few more things to deal with.
Yeah.
Maybe the one after that.
Right. Yep. That's fine.
And maybe we even want to do a separate night to just talk about this.
Yeah.
That's
probably
idea.
a great idea too. Yes.
Yeah,
I think that there's concern, Bob's email has concerns about, we got, and even Judy said it, we got data before COVID-19, and is this going to change anything? I mean, I don't know. In some areas it probably isn't. Maybe in others it will. I can't see it changing social emotional wellness. Obviously, we're going to even need more of that. But 2 is going to be a big focus, because they're saying that this is going to impact the kids.
Yes.
Right, economically. So I think that slowing it down is not a bad idea, and having one night where we discuss all of it in the next few weeks or month or so is not a bad idea.
Would it be fair to suggest, perhaps, just in terms of structure for discussion, would it be helpful if the strategic plan committee met, and we can think about how to best facilitate a productive discussion so that we can continue moving forward?
That's a good idea.
I agree.
I love committee. I love committees who help us stay structured.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Because honestly, guys, I respect Bob's opinion, and I'm was very saddened when he wasn't able to come, but I do feel strongly that we need to be moving forward. Slowing down, okay, but we need to be moving forward. I mean, as I think about our culture, as I think about the portrait of our graduates and our staff, I think of one word, and it's resilience. The fact that the world changed and we were able to move forward as if almost nothing happened is this community's incredible resilience. And I have to tell you, this resilience was enabled by a really strong strategic plan, by the way, that set the stage for them to be able to do that. So for me to kind of stop and pause, it's just not the right thing to do. In a very weird way, I'm gonna go out and say it, and you guys are gonna think I'm completely crazy, but what the hell? I am glad that we have a pandemic in the middle of, strategic planning. Because it's a torture test, because that's exactly the purpose of the strategic plan, right? It's to establish an infrastructure to guide us not when everything is rosy, but when things are tough. Damn it, when things are tough, the tough get going, right? And speaking of culture, I do think that this is the culture of this community. And so I really would urge us, to find a way to kind of keep punching holes in the Swiss cheese, as they say, as opposed to pause just because, things are not perfect. There's never going to be perfection. There is no such thing as perfect. Progress is really what shapes us.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Peter, do you have your hand raised?
Oh, I'm
Or was that from
sorry.
before? No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I wasn't missing you.
Thank
So
you.
if I'm hearing you, Jordana, we want to set up a strategic plan committee meeting?
Please. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. That was a really long way of saying please set up a
No, I just want to make sure I got my action item from that. That's all.
Okay. So we got a lot in our exec. So I don't know if we're even going to get through it in the half an hour. So I think we need to start. So I want to thank.
I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Yes.
motion.
And thank you, everybody. Thanks, Max and Judy.
Thank you, Max.
Thank
Did
you.
appreciate it?
Thank you.
I will. So what I'm going to do now is put all of the public into a waiting room, and then everyone in the public, if you want to sign out, and do something else for the next half hour and sign back in, that's fine. But either way, I'll let everyone back in around 7:30.
And I will just say that in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, we hereby resolve that the board move into executive session to discuss confidential personnel, student, legal matters, student safety and security, and PSA negotiations, after which action will be taken.
All right, we need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, everyone is back in.
Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is board correspondence. And we have been getting multiple email correspondence pertaining to graduation, and the superintendent's gonna have her comments on that. And we've been responding to them as they come in. And I think also some have come in to Mr. Phelan, and he's responded to some of them as well. And I've responded to some of them about, what are the plans for graduation. So that is really board correspondence that we're getting. It's somebody's phone. Oh, okay. Everybody should be on mute in the public, right, Liz, at this point?
That's what I'm checking to make sure. They should be muting themselves. Otherwise, I'm going to take care of that right now.
Okay, so why don't we make sure everybody's on mute
And camera's off.
before we go to the next agenda item.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, so now we'll go into your comments.
Okay. So a couple of things to share. So tonight, actually, our guidance department is hosting our very first virtual college panel. So its intention is to help our juniors and seniors navigate some of the issues around college application and admission decisions during this very uniquely challenging time. And we have a couple of college admission representatives that are part of that panel tonight, from NYU, from Northeastern, Penn State, University of Richmond, Quinnipiac, and TCNJ. So that's actually occurring right now. And on June 3rd, we are going to be hosting a virtual 8th grade orientation with a panel of 9th and 10th graders, and they're finalizing the plans for that right now. So one of the other items that I want to address tonight, and I assume that's why a number of the public are in attendance, is graduation. I am heartbroken that we cannot celebrate our class of 2020 in the traditional ways that our Watchung Hills community has grown to love and embrace. Graduation is a very meaningful event for me, both personally and professionally. I've been attending a minimum of one graduation ceremony per year since I graduated from college, whether it was my own master's or doctoral ceremony, a ceremony for a family member or a friend, or the graduation of the district within which I was working. I've never missed one. And I'm actually one of those strange people who gets emotional at a graduation, even if I don't know anyone there. And I have attended those. When I was a high school principal, I would attend graduations of other schools to see how they ran theirs, to get ideas. And if I'm watching a TV show where they're playing Pomp and Circumstance for a graduation, I tear up. So it's a very meaningful experience for me. And if I'm feeling this way, I can only imagine how our seniors and their parents are feeling. So you may have heard that the governor's comment yesterday during his press conference that we should remain hopeful for a July in-person graduation ceremony. This comment is in direct contradiction to his reopening guidelines that indicate no mass gatherings will be allowed during phases 1, 2, or 3, but only when we return to what is considered normal, which has been indicated will be when there is a vaccine. So therefore, indicating that an in-person graduation ceremony would be allowable in July is a bit perplexing to those of us trying to plan these events. However, if the governor is saying we should have hope, then we are going to have hope. So we are still keeping our options open should the guidance change. We've been working diligently to plan a virtual ceremony, and we have 2 options for the timing. And I'll share those, and we're likely going to survey, send some surveys regarding some of the different options to see what people would prefer, and then what's based within the guidelines of what's allowed, what we can do. So our first option for timing is to hold our virtual ceremony on June 19th and to keep the option open of having an in-person ceremony later in the summer if the restrictions are lifted. This has been our approach. However, based on recent parent requests, we're currently considering a second option where we postpone the ceremony to a later specified date in late July or early August. That's when the students had indicated beyond that they would not want a ceremony, as they'll be preparing to hopefully leave for college. This does present some unique challenges, as those of you who have attended ceremonies on our turf field before in June, before the weather has gotten into the summer heat, it's still extremely hot on that field. And over the summer, it can get a lot hotter. So that's something we have to consider. But what we would do is postpone the ceremony to a later specified date. And if the restrictions change and we're allowed to have an in-person ceremony at that time, then we would do so. And if not, we'll go ahead and air our virtual ceremony on that date. I've also spoken with the PTO, who has been more than willing to help us and the alumni, the class of 2020 alumni, plan some kind of celebratory event later in the summer or the fall, as they did not get to have a prom nor project graduation. And so that they will likely be sending a survey out to students to see what kind of event they would want, who would be interested in participating. So that's another option we're looking at as well. With regard to our current plans leading up to the virtual ceremony, this is what we are in the process of trying to plan right now. And we have not sent out specific guidance on all of these because we are awaiting additional guidance from the Department of Education and the governor. So we don't want to send out plans that we then have to change, but we will be sending out more information this week and also be looking to gather some feedback. So I have reached out to the Chamber of Commerce in each of our communities to ask all the small businesses in our towns to display signs supporting our class of 2020 on lawns, windows, vehicles, wherever they see fit, and how they can get however creative they want. We also are working on getting all of the pertinent items to our seniors, the caps and gowns, honor cords, diplomas, the senior gift baskets. And we initially had looked at possibly trying to deliver those via bus to student homes, but then we realized there would be some difficulties with that because we do have some houses that are hard to get to. We were worried about timing and weather with leaving things outside. Plus, some of our families have had to relocate temporarily to assist family members who've been affected by the current pandemic. So we are actually looking at doing a pickup at the school, and we will be sending more information out about that. And so we're actually planning that around when we get the caps and gowns delivered to us, because those have been delayed due to some of the plants closing due to the pandemic. Following that, we're working on a schedule for students to come back to the school to take pictures in their caps and gowns. And so we're working on the details for that. We've looked at some different options. The students have expressed that they would like a stage set up that they can walk across, and some various pictures. So we are going to have our professional graduation photographer available. We are just trying to work out some of the details of how to do this safely. And so that may mean that we are not able to use the turf because there are other areas that more easily allow for cars to pull in and out, which would also allow us to potentially have parents be able to get out of the car with their student for the photo. So those are some of the options we're working on as well. And then we're finalizing the student speakers coming to the school to record their speeches. The plan right now is that the administrators announcing student names, the principal, myself, will all be actually in the PAC live on the day of graduation, socially distanced from each other so that we can give our speeches and present the class and call their names live in the PAC. So that's our current plan, which is continuing to evolve as we consult with police, our local health official, the different vendors, working out logistics, getting feedback from the students and parents. So it is continuing to evolve, and I promise you that we will continue to remain as flexible as we can if we get different guidelines that allow for more social interaction. And so that is I think I've covered all of the points about graduation. And so I will turn it over to President Barone.
Thank you, Dr. Jewett. I just want to be clear to everyone that this board and the district's main priority is the health and safety of the students, their families, and the staff in any decisions we make with regard to graduation, reopening, all the decisions that are going to come in the near future for us. And that this board is 100% supportive of the administration, and we and the staff, and are so proud of them and in how they are weathering all the different complications and changes that need to be made almost every day as the state provides additional guidance as in all these areas that we're facing. We've gotten many emails, and I know there's a lot of people here tonight who want to make some comments, and we welcome all comments and suggestions. I would just ask that you give us, be patient with us and understand that we are going to listen to all of your comments. We can't answer all questions tonight. That's not the purpose of the comment period. But we take everything in and make sure it's feasible, given the main priority is the health and safety of all the students, their families, and the staff. And remember that the decisions that we make, we're within the constraints of what the state guidance provides us, and we are responsible to act within those restrictions. We're a public entity. We can't go beyond those restrictions. We can't make up our own guidelines. We don't have a public health official that we rely upon. That's someone that we can control within the our public school system. We rely upon the public health professionals that are within our state government, county government, and local governments. And we rely upon the public safety officials that are telling us what is important and how to address all these issues. So I think as I've said in many of my responses to the emails, we're going to pivot as quickly as we can to pivot. And we will be as flexible as we can. And we're going to have to be like that for all of the coming decisions that we're going to make. So I just ask that everybody be patient with us. Give us all your suggestions, and know that we're going to take them to heart. So I think with that, we can go into our business administrator's comments.
I have no comments, Madam President.
Okay. So then we have one committee report as operations. If there's no business administrator comments, do we have operations committee?
Yes, I can. Do you want me to go over the minutes of the meeting?
Sure, that would be fine. Thank you, Peter.
Okay. On May 13th, we had a Zoom operations committee meeting. During that meeting, Mr. Stiles provided a snapshot of where the district stands with regard to our current 2019-2020 budget in light of the current situation. He discussed the loss of revenue to the district due to the crisis. That loss of revenue is approximately $50,000, having to do with rentals of the school facilities that we aren't able to rent out during the crisis. Our business administrator, Mr. Stiles, also discussed the possibility of losing some or all of the June state aid payment, which would be approximately $345,000. When you take into account that we have other revenue categories where we've received more funds than originally budgeted, the projected worst case scenario right now is approximately a $200,000 shortfall, which would be from lowered revenues, not getting the state aid, and a possibility of the anticipated extraordinary aid possibly not being paid to us. We won't have any information on what our actual state aid payments will be for the upcoming school year until there's a budget decided upon, which will probably be right around September 1st. That's the state budget, not our budget. We've spent less than budgeted due to the shutdown in areas of transportation, substitute teachers, overtime, energy, and athletic needs. And again, what we've got from all of that is that there's a projected amount available considering the shortfall in revenue of approximately $2 million. So if the revenue were much worse, we would still certainly be able to get through this school year. Mr. Stiles then moved on and discussed some of the preventative measures that would be recommended to be purchased in order to be ready for the return, hopefully be ready for the return of students in the fall, to minimize infections and any future spread of the infectious disease. We focus primarily on things for the bathroom, soap and toilet, soap and paper towel dispensers, getting automated ones and additional sanitizing equipment, as well as a discussion of the PPE that we might need. We don't yet have full guidance on what PPE might be needed, but it seemed clear that we definitely do want to go to things like automated soap dispensers and sanitizers that'll be attached to the walls. And so the committee suggested to Mr. Stiles that he ought to go ahead and look into purchasing some of that stuff as he can in the current school year. He pointed out that FEMA has indicated that they would probably be reimbursing 75% of those costs. So that was part of the reason that the committee recommended moving forward on that at this point. There's also a discussion about the contractors. One of the hurried laws that the state passed provides for that school districts are supposed to pay contractors for services even if the services aren't being provided during this period. That impacts particularly transportation, and all of the bus companies are asking to be paid despite the fact that they're not providing bus services to us during this. The law that was passed is not totally clear on what the obligations are. It provides that we're supposed to be talking with the contractors about what are fixed costs versus variable costs, and also about what other sources of income these contractors have to make up the money. So we're in a situation now where many of the contractors are demanding 80 or 100% of what's remaining due on the contract. After discussions about the law not being totally clear, the committee is recommending with Mr. Stiles that we go back to those contractors and tell them we're going to pay 50% of the amounts that are due under the current contract, and if they then can come back and show us documentation that they've paid their employees and have used whatever sources they could to to replace the income from either grants or loans available from either the state or the federal government, that if that leaves them with a shortfall and we have to pay more, we would be open to doing that if it's required by law. Finally, we discussed what do we do about the transportation contracts for the upcoming year. And because this law is in effect, it requires payment even if services aren't rendered. The committee's recommended that we hold off as long as possible before signing a contract for transportation costs for next year until we know exactly not just when we're going to open, but how we're going to be able to use bus services in light of any remaining social distancing requirements that might be in effect. And then the final thing was Mr. Stiles told us that the district is eligible for a CARES Act grant in the amount of $31,000. So that's hopefully going through, and that we expect to still be receiving the grant to implement security upgrades. That's the security upgrades we're considering for the upcoming year. That's the end of the meeting minutes.
Okay, that was a lot. Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Phelan?
Can I add one thing before a question?
Yeah.
So with the $2 million, the anticipated amount of surplus funds, which is not, it's more than what it would normally be, but it's still, there's usually you're within the $1 million range, somewhere in that. You're talking about a $50 million budget. So with those funds, we were going to purchase some of those preventative things that Peter was talking about, partially, and then the other piece would go to surplus to cover the anticipated loss in state aid, which were in the early reports so far is that the state's talking about a loss of $10 billion in their budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine they're going to redo the budget and we will lose some state aid. I can't imagine we won't. But just so you understand, part of those funds is going to go to help us in next year's budget.
Right.
That was it. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Stiles. So does anybody have any questions for Peter? Okay. All right. So we now move into our first opportunity for public comment. The first public comment period is limited to agenda items for this meeting only. The second public comment period is open to any topic, which is at the end of the meeting. All comments are limited to 5 minutes. If you have a comment, please use your raise the hand function, and Dr. Jewett will unmute you so you can indicate your comment. As we do in public in-person session, please state your name and where you are from so that we have that information for our records and minutes. Thank you. Oh, you're muted.
If anyone is having trouble raising their hand for some reason, I don't see any hands raised. There is a second public comment period, so you can email me and I will get that between now and then, just in case anyone's having any difficulty. But I do not see any hands raised.
Does Nancy Wilsensky have her hand raised, Liz?
Yeah, Nancy Wilsensky.
I don't see any hands raised. Why?
It's going up and down.
It appeared on the screen.
Oh, I don't see any on mine. Oh, are you talking about
on her screen?
Yeah, like
we see it on the screen.
Yeah, we can see it on the screen.
Try unmuting her and see if she.
I will do so.
At least it was there for a second.
Yeah, it kind of goes up and down.
I have to see if I can. Here we go. Ms. Wilsensky, did you have a public comment?
I have a question. Is that under public comments?
So you can state your question, but we're not going to answer. It's not a question and answer session. It's really for you to give your comments. And if there's questions within the comments, we will absorb that and see if we can answer it maybe at the end of the public comment period or at some later time.
Okay. Well, the comment is, I just wanted to state that there is a giant billboard up on Route 22 at this moment, set up from Project Graduation. That'll be up through June 7th. So if people wanted to see from Project Graduation a billboard up, and if students wanted to go take pictures, that they can.
Okay.
And then I did have a question, but I'll wait.
Okay.
Ms. Wilsensky, somebody sent me a picture of the billboard. It looks fantastic. Thank you so
It
much.
came out great. It
really
really did. It was lovely. Thank you.
Anybody else have their hands raised, Liz?
Where is it on 22?
Oh, between Warrenville Road and Washington Avenue. If you're coming down Warrenville and you're headed eastbound, you'll see it on the left-hand side. And if you do the turnaround at Washington and pull back like you're going to Warrenville, it's where the construction site is. So you can actually pull into the gravel there. And my daughter went and took pictures today. So you can definitely do that.
Thank you.
I do not see any other hands raised, and I'm checking my email as well, just in case. So, but we do have a second public comment period, so folks.
Rosa Kraus, raising her hand.
Yeah, Rosa Kraus.
They're not coming up on mine. This is so odd.
It's not appearing on my participants either, but rather the
So
screen.
you're seeing it on the screen? Okay.
Yeah,
It looks like clapping hands.
Oh, that's not the hand raise.
Right.
That's why. That's a gesture. So for those of you that are the public and Ms. Kraus, I'll unmute you. It's at the bottom of your screen. See, actually, somebody who's a participant, because I'm the host, can you explain where the raise your hand function is, Freddie?
Yeah, so if everyone looks at the bottom of their screen, you'll see a couple of different features: stop video, mute. To the right of that is participants. If you click on that, on the right side of your screen will pop up a list of names. And at the very bottom of that list, you'll see a feature called raise hand. By doing so, your hand will pop up like it should.
Yep, yours is. Yes. Thank you, Freddie. That's why they're using the
they're using reactions.
reactions.
Yeah,
That's
sorry
why I'm
about
not
that.
seeing it. And
Okay.
I can't, no, that's okay. I'm glad because I can't see all the participants on my screen. So no problem.
I
And
have-
see the board.
I have an iPad, and on mine it's under more. It's at the top and it's under more. And then raise hand is one of the options.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Okay,
So,
so yes,
Kraus?
Ms. Kraus, go right ahead.
So my first,
And
observation.
Ms. Kraus, hold on one moment. Because I think Tim needs this for the minutes. Can you just state Tim, what do you ask them to state at the beginning?
The
of
address.
Just their
Name
name
and address.
Your name and your town.
and your town.
Yeah, Rosa Kraus, Warren, New Jersey. So first, Dr. Jewett, it's interesting that on the survey for strategic planning, social and emotional well-being is really at the top of what we should be focusing for next year. With that said, back in February at a PTO meeting, when we discussed the cap and gowns, you were very clear that the social and mental well-being of your students were your priority. With that said, how come that is not being taken into consideration? The kids they're good kids. They understand what is going on in the world today. And I am pretty sure they know the rules about social distancing. So we have a football field that has 77,000 square feet where we can easily accommodate just the students. Have the parents do it virtually. But why can't we accommodate the students? This is for them. You care. Your words were the social and mental well-being of your students were very important. Why isn't it important now? How come Principal Libera has once done a video to the kids? He's new. This should be his time to shine for the next class. Not once has he addressed the kids. Once. These kids are distraught. They have missed a third of their senior year. No prom, no yearbook signing, nothing. Why have none of the suggestions we have given even been considered? I mean, Bridgewater, the next town over, is doing something amazing for their kids. They're taking 2 weeks visiting every child individually. As a parent, oh my gosh, that is awesome. The kids would love that. How come we're not doing that? Why are all our ideas just completely being shut down when we know what's going on? We understand social distancing, but none of our ideas are being listened to or even taken into consideration. Another thing, how come tonight was the first night we are hearing about an in-person graduation? We've gotten tons of emails and not once has an in-person graduation even been addressed on those emails. Why only tonight? So that is what I am severely frustrated. It's the lack of empathy towards our seniors. They don't want a virtual graduation. The kids don't want to sit there for 4 hours.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And again,
once public comments closed,
yep,
Brown, I can provide
yep,
some
that's what I was thinking.
clarity.
Yep. Anybody else have their hands raised?
Do not see any.
Okay.
Dr. Cucci, I think, has her hand raised.
Oh, is it okay, I do see one that just popped up. And I don't see oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the top. Yes, Dr. Cucci, I do see 3 hands. Dr. Cucci, go ahead and state your name and your town.
Oh, no, no.
Is she muted? On mine, it looks like she's muted.
Sorry, Dr. Cucci, you are
Yes.
on mute. Go ahead. Thank
Hi,
you.
Patricia Cucci, Warren, New Jersey. I just want to state for the record, I'd like to just say that with the governor easing restrictions on a daily basis, opening beaches, outdoor activities can resume. Rather than give you many specific ideas, I'm asking the board to work with Project Graduation parents, acting as representative for all the parents, to come up with a safe way to hold an in-person graduation in some form. I believe that's possible for June 19th, be it in small groups or some other creative way, if not later in the summer. My concern is on the virtual ceremony rather than working on in-person options, which are permitted now with the governor's new directives.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank
you. Ms. Hagel? Oh, I need some up and her. She's unmuted.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I'm very happy with everything that you said tonight, because my issue was that it was
Did she identify herself?
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Stacey
say your-
Hagel from Warren.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I'm very happy with everything that you said tonight, because to me, it feels like you're with us and that we're united and that you're trying to have something happen. And I think for a lot of the parents, they were upset with cancel, and postponed makes everyone happy, because everything is changing every day. And I just think that everyone thought that it was too soon to cancel everything. So the email that went out last week made everybody very upset, and the kids very upset the way it was done, because it was kind of cold. And this week, with what you're saying now, I think that that gives everybody hope. And right now, that's what we need.
Thank you for your comments.
I just want to say that I'm appreciative that you are trying. I know that it's not your decision, that it's the governor's decision, and really you can't do anything until you get, permission from them. So I'm appreciative that it's being considered, and hopefully we can make something happen. And of course, all the parents are behind you, and we'll do everything we can to make it go as smoothly as possible. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Marcillo, please identify yourself and your town.
She's muted.
Oh, thank you. I keep forgetting I have to do that. Let me find her. Hold on. I undid. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, Miss Marcelo, you're unmuted now.
Okay, so no one heard me so far?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, I'm Nancy Marcillo from Warren. I'm Peter's neighbor. I've been in touch with a number of you, and as I mentioned in my various emails, I started a Facebook group for parents of seniors because I felt like we were a special subset of Watchung Hills parents. And I came into this meeting late, so I don't know if I missed any discussion about change of plans or future plans for the graduation ceremony. But I just wanted to echo my fellow senior parents who have previously just spoken. And if the administration is open to doing more than a virtual ceremony, that would be amazing. And I just share the frustration that we just felt like we have not been being heard all this time. And we can certainly have a virtual graduation anytime. So I would rather see it as a last resort down the road versus the first option for June 19th, then, you know, maybe we could do something else. Let's leave it as the last option. If nothing else can work, which I don't believe is the case, you know, leave that for the last possible solution. And as I said to Peter, and some of the other parents have mentioned, there are tons of creative things being done by other schools, and many that are not far from here. So we just want to feel like these ideas are not being blown off without discussion and consideration. So on behalf of the Facebook group of parents, please just, keep your ears open and your options and minds open to being creative about this and making this happen for our kids. And this just applies to the graduation ceremony. If there's a way to somehow hold all the other events that they're missing out on, even, prom or all that, the yearbook signing parties and the project graduation event down the road, that would be really awesome. Don't know if it can happen. And of course, we need to keep, whatever the governor says in mind. But at least if we can just know that we're being heard and all options are on the table up until the last possible minute, that would be really appreciated. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for your comments.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia?
Alicia Librano, Greenbrook. I just wanted to say that I do appreciate being on here tonight and hearing messages of hope at this point. And I know you've received a ton of emails, some nicer than others probably, but we just want to know that things are coming along and that everyone is working on trying to make it the best for our kids. And I think one theme that's kind of been forwarded from most people is let's just go to postpone and not keep June 19th as a hard date. And if the restrictions allow, I think most of us would prefer July, whether it's 95 out or it's 75 out, just to be able to see our kids graduate and have the joy of being able to do that. We all need some joy in this crazy, crazy time that we've had. So as parents, we've waited a long time for this, whether it's your first child, your third child, your fifth child, it's just as meaningful, whatever stage of raising your children it is. And I truly appreciate the fact that everyone seems on board to try and do something more than just the virtual graduation for the kids. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Do not see any other hands.
Okay.
So do you want to close public comment?
Yep, I'm going to close public comment at this point. and we'll go into board discussion.
Can I follow up on some of the comments, Rita? Just
Sure, if you want to do that now, that's fine.
Oh, it's up to you. If you, that way in
Nope,
case.
no,
hang
go
around.
ahead. Probably makes sense to do it fresh.
So I am sorry if it has ever come across that Mr. Librera and I are, have anything less than the health and safety and social and emotional well-being of our students as our first priority.
Yeah, I really want to.
And so,
oh, we don't, somebody's not muted.
looks like
it says iPhone.
Find it.
That's the one coming up.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Yep, thanks.
So, because I can promise you that that is not the case, and that we talk multiple times per day, Mr. Librera and I, and more than one of those conversations is about what we can do to honor the seniors. Everything from having the Twitter feed that is recognizing our senior athletes that are not getting a spring season, to figuring out how we can do some other virtual ceremonies for their scholarship night and their the other awards, the senior awards events, to figuring out how we can get the items to them. Our plan is actually very similar to Bridgewater's. They are doing a virtual graduation. They've set the date for that, and the only difference is they have access to many more buses than we do. And so they are delivering the items to the students, whereas for us, we realized that would presented a number of logistical problems I'd mentioned earlier, as well as some parents who have notified us that they're not home right now because of the pandemic. And so, we thought that it would work out better if we actually had them come to us, and we can decorate the school and make it an event in a safe, socially distanced way. The reason that we have not even brought up an in-person graduation until this week is because, and the directive that schools still have is, we are not permitted to have one. We are not allowed to have a gathering of larger than 10 people. And the directive that we received last week was that we are only permitted to have a virtual ceremony. And so that's why we sent out notification. We wanted everyone to know that we were planning something for the seniors, and that those were the guidelines that were given to us. So we were trying to be as transparent as possible with the directives that were given to us. And those still have not changed. However, as I said earlier, the governor said to have hope. So we're having hope. And we'll see what happens. But as of right now, we are not allowed to do any kind of in-person ceremony. So I just want to reiterate that is why, we have not planned that, and we are not planning that. What I can tell you is that ceremony is much easier for us to do than the logistics we're trying to plan right now. We still have all of the equipment we need for that, all of the chairs, the stage. We've made sure that is all still in place, so that if we're told at the beginning of June that we can have an in-person ceremony, we will be able to pivot to that right away. The difficulty becomes in the summer, because some students have already expressed concern with summer jobs that they're hoping will continue, leaving for college, those types of things. But that's why we're going to send out a survey to see what the majority of people would like. I think those were all of the things that I just wanted to reiterate. Ms. Marcillo, if you go on by tomorrow or the next day, the video of the meeting should be posted, and you'll hear my comments at the beginning, which explain some of the options, as well as the PTO offering to help our class of 2020, once they're alum, do perhaps some kind of celebration to take the place of project graduation and the prom that we're missing. But I do just want to reiterate that Mr. Librera and I, as well as the entire faculty and staff, our number one concern is the well-being of our students. And so, it hurts me personally, not just professionally, when you accuse me of otherwise, because all of our intentions with everything have been that. And if we were permitted to have an in-person graduation ceremony, that is 100% what we will be doing. And that is what we are waiting for more guidance on. And everything else, we're trying to plan some other special events for the seniors in terms of receiving their graduation items and taking pictures. We just need some time, because we also are told that we need to wait for guidance before we can plan that. We're trying to keep up with what's changing on a daily basis, and we will continue to keep you updated. But just, have some patience and understanding, and know that we are trying to work within the guidelines to celebrate the seniors in the way that they've earned and deserved, but also with health and safety as the number one concern. There will be an opportunity for second public comment. I do see another hand raised, but we've closed the first public comment. So at the end of the meeting, that will be available again.
All right, so now we're going to move into board discussion of the addendum items, I guess. Discussion of addendum items before we move into action items. So we just have a few addendum items. I don't know if people have any questions on them.
Nope.
Okay, why don't we move into
Action
action
items?
items? Yes, please.
Madam President, I'd like to move resolutions A1 and A2.
We need a second.
Second.
Thanks, Susan.
Any questions or comments on A1 or A2? Hearing none. Mr. Stiles, roll call.
Dr. Chand?
Yep, everybody needs to unmute so you can say yes. Or no.
I didn't even have, there you are. Can't find everybody on my screen. Okay, Dr. Chand. Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Mrs. Ober?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yeah.
Ms. Raban?
Yes.
And Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Madam President, I would like to move resolutions C1 through C10 with the following change to resolution C5 from the agenda that was published. An increase of the rate from $25 to $26 per hour and an increase of the hours per week from 25 to 28 hours.
Any questions or comment? Oh, first I need a
To be
second.
seconded.
Yeah, I need a second. All right. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Dr. Chand?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Ober?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Ms. Raban?
Yes.
And Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Madam President, I'd like to move resolutions D1 through D9.
Second.
Thank you. Any
Janine.
questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Dr. Chand?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Mrs. Ober?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Ms. Raban?
Yes.
And Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
We're now moving into the portion of the agenda for second opportunity for public comment. So again, if you have a comment you'd like to make, use your raise your hand button and
So
we'll recognize you.
Mr. Kraus?
My name is Thomas Kraus and I'm from Warren. I'm a student at Watchung Hills.
Oh.
So Superintendent Jewett, you continuously say that you care about the well-being of your students, but you've proved it over and over again that you do not. You said that you care about the 10% for cap and gowns, but where's the other 90% of us, like when we need it the most? The principal, the librarian, I think is his name, has done nothing for us. I guarantee you, if we had Mr. McConnell here, he would have made sure that he was at each kid's doorstep, handing us our diploma, taking pictures with us, making sure we were okay. We have not seen any of that from any of you. We have other schools having the drive-up graduations, and we're still stuck on the virtual graduation. We had a survey about this with like 250 students. 220 of those kids said no, they would not attend. So good luck with doing that.
All right, thank you for your comment. Oh, okay. So in terms of our comments here, it's the same way it would be in public. We need to make sure that our comments are professional, that they are not attacking. And again, we will take all the suggestions, but we need people to make sure that they're using language that is appropriate, and that was inappropriate language. Any other hands up?
Yes,
Dr.
Ms.
Jewett?
Wilsensky has her hand raised. I will unmute you. Oh, the controls just went. Hold on. There we go. Okay, Ms. Wilsensky, you should be unmuted.
I am Nancy Wilsensky, Warren, New Jersey. I have two questions. My first one is, if we do postpone graduation to the summertime, whether it be July or the beginning of August, as far as the teachers' union and requirements and regulations, how does that work with teachers being involved with graduation? And my other question also is, well, not really a question, but as one of the executive board members for Project Graduation, I just wanted to say that there are many things still to come from Project Graduation. We've tried to really think out of the box, knowing that we weren't having an ice cream social, knowing we weren't having other items. And I just, you know, we had sent a letter to all students and all parents, and more things are still to come for them. So we don't want them to think that, you know, just because a virtual graduation might take place, that their children are not getting other items on that list. So they have things to look forward to in the midst of this lovely craziness. So I guess my only question is really in regards to the teacher contract, and if they were required to attend, or how that would work in a future date.
So, Dr. Jewett, if those, I don't know if you want to address them now, or the questions now, or.
I can, so first of all, Ms. Wilsensky, thank you so much. The Project Graduation Group is doing a tremendous job in trying to be creative in how you are facilitating celebrations for the seniors. I know you're meeting with Mr. Librera quite frequently, so I really, really appreciate that. With regard to a summer ceremony, it presents a number of logistical problems, as you know, specifically with regard to supervision. So, you know, our teachers are not certainly our 10-month employees, and they, you know, as many people have right now, I'm sure they have childcare concerns and things like that. So we'd probably ask, you know, for solicit volunteers to help us if it ended up being a summer ceremony. These are all of the things, you know, the logistical issues that we're trying to plan for should that happen. You know, we will make it work if it becomes an option. I can promise that.
Great, thank you so much for answering that.
You're welcome. And really thank you for all of your service with Project Graduation. That's not an easy job in a normal year, and it's especially not so in a year like this.
It's been rather challenging, and it's been interesting, but we're working hard and we'll continue to do so.
Okay, anybody else?
Do not have any trouble check. Oh, yes. I have something that says Martin's iPad, so I will unmute you.
Let me see if I can, I guess you don't get my picture. That's okay. Martin Allen from Long Hill. How are you doing today? Just wanted to mention that I've been listening to the governor probably daily, and listened to him today. And one of the things he did mention was that we should all be patient, that there are plans coming down the road. I know that it's a trying time for everybody. We're all experiencing cabin fever. I know you're doing the best you can. Maybe to close the meeting, if you would all, or Ms. Jewett, Dr. Jewett, if you would maybe go over the various options again that you're considering, so everybody can hear them one more time. So I think I heard them at the beginning. I know there's various things that other school districts are doing. Obviously, the problem is we don't have our own buses. I heard that. Other problem is that parents have moved out of the district during COVID-19 for various reasons. So maybe you can reflect on it, talk about some of the things that you're considering, keeping in mind that the governor and the state is going to be coming down with some directions in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Spalkowski, family iPhone. I'm just reading what it says on here.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. Just state your name and where you're from.
Sure. Kristen Salkowski from Watchung. I just wanted to thank you for putting in there that we should have hope. I think that's something that everybody needs to cling to right now. And I appreciate what you said, that you guys have the stage, the chairs, and everything, and you're prepared to pivot if restrictions are lifted. I think that's something that really needs to be the parents, because nothing is more important to us than having our children have that opportunity to get together as a class, walk across the stage, flip their tassel, and be together as a group. Even if parents have to watch that virtually from home, because I can understand that there's a lot of crowd control issues with social distancing. I, as a parent, would be thrilled if just the kids got to be on the football field. If we could at least, very least have that, and know that the school is 100% planning to accommodate that should the option become available. I think that would alleviate a lot of frustration for parents, knowing that there's something more than a virtual graduation and it's not just a throwaway at this point. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Kelly?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I wasn't going to say anything this evening, but I felt compelled to thank you all for the work you're doing, to thank you, Dr. Jewett, for the work you're doing. These are not easy times. We are under extraordinary pressures to do it right, and we only have one shot at it. So graduation is important, but it is one piece of the larger puzzle that we have to look at. And I think the safety and well-being of our students, while they're presented with their diploma, should be of the utmost importance. I just wanted to say I appreciate that you are open to options and you're listening and you are taking cues from the higher ups to make sure that you're doing the best for our students and your students. And like I said, I just felt compelled to say thank you, because I think it's important in these times to do so. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for your comments.
If Tina could identify herself, though.
Oh, I'm
she
sorry.
didn't say where she was from.
I didn't say, I'm sorry, because I had a hard time with my microphone. Tina Kelly from Watchung.
Thank you. I do not see any other hands. I believe that's it, Ms. Brown.
Okay, I'm going to close the second comment period. One thing I wanted to remark about, though, today, something very good happened for us all, and we learned today that our superintendent was named Superintendent of the Year for Somerset County. So I think she's should enjoy this moment, even though it comes within the pandemic. We're going to get her a T-shirt that says, "I was Superintendent of the Year for Somerset County while quarantined." But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were all very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
You're a tremendous board to work for, and I have a tremendous team. And I echo Ms. Kelly's comments that our school and our community has really pulled together, and I can't thank the board and the faculty and staff enough, because they make my job easy in terms of working through all of these things, because it truly is a team. And if any of the staff are in the audience tonight, I want them to know how much I truly appreciate their commitment to the students through all of this.
Okay, that being said, I don't know if anybody else has any other business. The only other thing I want to mention is we still have to, don't forget we have the superintendent evaluation that we have to deal with as well in all of this. Freddie, I can see your finger up.
I'm raising my hand, wasn't sure was it necessary. I have a resolution that I would like to have the board vote on in regards to getting more directive from Governor Murphy surrounding the in-person graduation. Dr. Jewett and the district is not who should be getting criticized for this response. The comments from the state government has been conflicting. Like Dr. Jewett said, yesterday, Governor Murphy said to be hopeful for an in-person graduation and then released a plan that prohibited mass gatherings. So if there is a step to move forward onto how to properly plan for an in-person graduation, which I support and I think the students deserve, is to get a clear message. And this is what this resolution that I would like the board to vote on would get at, if I can read it. So it states, whereas on May 18th, Governor Murphy unveiled a multi-staged approach to execute a responsible and strategic restart of New Jersey's economy through the road back, restoring economic health through public health. Whereas the road back, restoring economic health through public health, prevents mass gatherings in all three stages. Whereas on May 18th, Governor Murphy told the public to hold out hope regarding in-person graduation. Now, therefore it be it resolved that the Watchung Hills Regional High School Board of Education urges the governor to provide school districts with clear and concise directives on planning and executing in-person graduation for the class of 2020 as soon as possible, so that districts will be able to formulate their own plans consistent with the health and safety needs of their individual communities, and resolve that the board secretary send a copy of this resolution to the New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. I feel this is the first step that we can take to try and get some direction and hold on to that hope that we're all really aiming for.
Madam President, I'd like to second that resolution.
Tim, there's no problem with doing this like this, right? The process is appropriate. I just want to make sure that we're, because it's not on the agenda. Can we just add a resolution at the end?
No, but I think he brought it up from the floor. I think, Freddie, did you move the resolution? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, he moved it.
And
Yep.
Peter,
Second.
I
Okay.
don't see an issue
All right.
with it.
All right, good. That's all I want to make sure that we're following those rules. Any other comments or questions about the resolution?
Very well written.
Yes, good job.
Thanks for doing that, Freddie.
Greg?
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, I think very eloquently written. I wonder whether, in addition to a squeezy toy, whether you could add to the resolution a copy going to the Senate President and the House. There's been some debate as to how long the governor can have executive privilege over making such decisions and when the legislature should actually be involved. So at least letting them know, I think, is a reasonable addition to your resolution. And then I also wonder, given that we have to make decisions about when school is open in September, hopefully that it will be, and we're making financial decisions and operations as to contracting within the next month, although I don't want to dilute the message and the intent for graduation, is it an opportunity to also ask for guidance about school reopening as well, as opposed to having several resolutions going forth? Even though graduation is most timely, we're still making decisions within a month about September.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, Dr. Shabowski, and wouldn't dilute the message. I know there's been a lot of at times criticism, but Dr. Jewett and the district is doing all they can to provide a proper ceremony for the senior class. And like I said, with the conflicting messages, it makes it difficult for the district to do this. And there's over 66 participants in this Board of Education meeting. To Dr. Shulski's point about sending this to the Senate President and the Assembly, I also urge parents and students to call on their representatives and tell them to urge Phil Murphy to be more clear about this. I understand this is a very difficult pandemic, and nor am I underselling the troubles of this. I'm an EMT. I volunteer locally, and I've seen the effects of it firsthand. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be afraid, that there's nothing to be worried about, but we're put in a difficult position without clear guidance from the state. So for the 65 people that are in this meeting, to talk to your legislators, your representatives, and tell them to voice your concerns and to urge Phil Murphy, that's how we're gonna get movement on this.
Hey, Tim, for procedures, are you clear on what Greg's additions were to the resolution? Because I would treat that as a motion by Greg to amend, which Freddie accepted and I would second, but do you have the substance of it or do you need more?
I think, yeah, well, first of all, I'm a little, who exactly do you want? Do you want Senator Kane, our representatives in this area? Is that what you're
Or do you
looking
mean
for?
the Senate President?
Or
Yeah,
the Senate President?
I meant the leadership of the Assembly and the Senate.
Okay. And then the other
So that would be
piece is you want guidance on when school will open.
Guide, not on when necessarily when, on what needs, how we can open. Well, Greg, you say it.
So, I mean, well, you know, based on our operations committee meeting, we're obviously needing to make decisions about transportation and many other things. And we really have gotten little, if any, information about what we could potentially plan. And one of our frustrations in that meeting was we've got contractors who are expecting a response this month, if not next month, and we have no idea what to do. So this may be an opportunity to also ask for guidance about how to plan reopening in September.
Or clearer guidance on the issues related to reopening.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so first we have to vote on the
amendment to the
amendment, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and that is not, I don't think we need a roll call on that, or Mr. Size, as the amendment?
I would
to
say
the
no.
resolution? Okay, so all those in
No money.
favor in terms of the amendment to
Unmute yourself, Susan.
Freddie's,
Okay, I've got my dog's squeaky toy though.
Freddie's resolution, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then we need a roll call on the resolution.
All right, well done. Okay. Dr. Chan?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Mrs. Ober?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Ms. Raban?
Yes.
And Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, any other business? See Peter's cat.
Actually, my daughter's cat that never went away with her.
All right, if there's no other business.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
And again,
everybody.
Thank everybody for their
Bye-bye.
comments.
Stay healthy and safe.
Not everyone.
Good night.